The Brexit trade talks are continuing beyond today's deadline after the UK and the EU agreed that their negotiators should keep talking. Major issues are still unresolved, but after a telephone call this morning, Boris Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen said that they would go the extra mile. The Prime Minister has repeated that a no-deal scenario was most likely, but that the two sides would be as creative as possible. Our political correspondent Iain Watson reports.
Are there still barriers in the way of a trade deal with Brussels? Today, the latest deadline was discarded, but the Prime Minister says some distance still remains between the two sides.
As things stand, I'm afraid we're still very far apart on some key things, but where there's life, there's hope. We're going to keep talking to see what we can do. The UK certainly won't be walking away from the talks.
And the EU Commission President said both sides would make a last-gasp effort to reach agreement.
Despite the exhaustion after almost 1 year of negotiations, and despite the fact that deadlines have been missed over and over, we both think that it is responsible at this point in time to go the extra mile.
So why does a tangible gap remain between the two sides? Well, there's still squabbling over what access EU fishing fleets would have to UK waters, and over how any wider trade deal would be policed if the two sides adopt different rules in the future. As well as talking to the EU Commission President today, Boris Johnson spoke to his cabinet colleagues. Despite agreeing to more talks in Brussels, he told them that no deal was still the more likely outcome.
We have to get ready for WTO terms. There is a clarity and a simplicity in that approach that has its own advantages.
So what are WTO or World Trade terms? Well, it means tariffs or taxes would be imposed from January the 1st on goods going from our shores to the EU and vice versa, pushing up some prices in the process. But this could be avoided if a deal is struck soon. Now, neither Downing Street nor Brussels have set themselves yet another deadline. These tend to come and go in any case. But I'm told informally that the question of deal or no deal needs to be settled in the next few days. And despite the apparent pessimism in there, it's important to note that detailed discussions are still continuing, so the prospect of a deal can't be completely ruled out. In fact, the Irish government believes a deal is within reach if both sides show willing.
97% of this deal has been negotiated across judicial, security, research, a whole range of areas. And it seems to me that the remaining 3% should not be beyond the capacity of both sides to bridge.
And Labour argues that there's no logic to no deal.
What the government seems to be saying is we are willing to accept no deal, which would mean tariffs across the board because of some future theoretical threat, maybe sometime in the future, to have tariffs in relation to some products. Now, that makes no sense at all. That's like saying, I'm worried that my roof is going to leak in 5 years' time, so let's bulldoze the house now.
Today, the negotiating teams have been given the green light to continue, but the direction of travel remains uncertain.
Now, sources close to the British side of the negotiations are saying, look, if there hadn't been any progress, talks would indeed have been called off today. One of them put it like this: the process still has some legs. But those legs tend to be strolling, not running, and they could even stumble, because I'm also being told the more detailed the discussions become, the more problems are being thrown up. Now, Boris Johnson says, look, the UK can prosper without a deal, but his critics, inside as well as outside the Conservative Party, are saying that if we leave without a trade agreement with our single biggest market, that will prove very costly.
Iain, thank you very much. Iain Watson in Westminster. And let's turn now to our Europe editor, Katya Adler, who's in Brussels. What do you think the extension of the talks means, Katya?
Well, of course, we've talked many times that neither the government nor the EU wants to get the blame in case it comes to no deal. So, Mishal, could it be possible that they're only still talking because neither side wants to be the first to walk away? Absolutely not, is what I'm hearing from EU contacts close to the talks. They say both sides are trying to be very constructive in the negotiating room, although big political decisions still need to be taken. So where do we go from here? What are the both side's going to decide. What we know is that neither side is going to sign up to this deal unless they can sell it at home as a victory. For the UK, of course, that would say it's protected its national sovereignty after Brexit. For the EU, it would mean protecting the single market. And until then, there just won't be any deal.
Katya Adler in Brussels, thank you very much. Well, business groups have welcomed the decision to keep the effort to get a trade deal going. Our business editor, Simon Jack, is here in the studio. So we still don't have an answer to how all of this ends, Simon, and yet there are immediate decisions that need to be made. How are businesses coping?
It feels like torture, this, doesn't it? Another extension, but it could have been worse. As you rightly say, business groups say, as long as they're still talking, there's still a chance of a deal. Because without one, they could have stood up today and said, we're throwing in the towel, that's it. And at that point, what means on January the 1st, the EU would be legally obliged, important point there, I wouldn't choose to do this, to bring in terms, the WTO terms, treat the UK like everyone else it doesn't have a trade deal. And that means 10% tariffs on cars, 48% on some forms of lamb. It would knock 2% off national income, according to the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility. That's £40 billion. So their stakes are still very high. Having said that, this extension does create problems. Firms need to be able to price and label their goods for next year. They don't know how to do that. And psychologically, if people keep thinking there's going to be some rabbit come out of the hat at the 11th hour, they'll take their foot off the gas and doing some of the things they need to do, whether we get a deal or not. So it wouldn't put them out of their misery if we had said no deal right now. But if we do get no deal, I'm afraid it could put some firms out of business.
Simon Jack, thank you.